I think we are ready to get started. Thank y'all for joining us for this program on stress and anxiety in children. I think this is such a relevant topic, and we're so fortunate to have some wonderful helpers that help us at our schools to help our students with these issues. So I'm going to introduce the speakers, and I guess I should first introduce myself. I'm Carissa Anthony. I'm the coordinator for the Safe and Healthy Homewood Collaborative. I'm also the Prevention and Development Coordinator for Homewood City Schools. So, we try to bring these types of topics to parents. A lot of this is based on what parents tell us they need. And so then we had two of our student assistance counselors that work with younger students that were willing to present this topic. So very appreciative of them. So our first student assistance counselor I would like to introduce is Tara Vines. Tara, would you wave your hand so they know who you are? Okay, there we go. Tara is a licensed professional counselor. She is one of our student assistance counselors that primarily works with elementary school students. She has over 20 years of experience working with children and families. She has 3 children, all their ages 10, 15, and 18. So she is across the board with her children, their ages. Our other student assistance counselor is Anna Kate Proom. Anna, would you wave so they know which one you are? There you go. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She mostly works at our middle school, but again, they help out wherever they can. And Anna Kate has over a decade of experience working with children and families. So, and she's also the parent of 3 children, and they're all pretty young. So if you've got young children, they feel what you're going through right now. Just to sort of have some housekeeping points that I want to make in this virtual environment, it's really best if we save all comments or questions until the very end. So in that vein, actually, you're all muted, so you can't speak out or anything. The only people who can talk are me and the presenters. But you can put a question or a comment in the chat box. So if you're unfamiliar with Google Meet, the chat box is on the lower right corner. It looks like a message box over there. So I will be monitoring that while our presenters are talking. So at the very end, we will have time for questions and answers. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Anna Kate and to Tara. And I'm going to pull up their presentation.
Good morning. Thank y'all for joining us today. We're really excited to be able to bring this information to you. We first wanted to start. We get that. I can't see the presentation. I don't know if
it's coming up. There we go.
Technical difficulties. There it is. So unpacking anxiety, this was something that just came to my attention really in wake of the pandemic, and just in an elementary level, seeing a lot of our students begin to struggle more with worry and anxiety. So I really wanted to do something for you guys just in a more basic elementary level. And I thought, who best to learn from than our own kids? So I found a fun little video that I think just tells this story through a kid's eyes. And I've kind of listed some quotes that I've heard this past year from some of our students here in Homewood and some of my own kids and family members. They might say, I have jelly legs, my tummy hurts, I really just don't want to go to school, I don't want to go to soccer, I don't have any friends. A lot of times I'll hear kids say a lot of what ifs. So what if this happens? What if that happens? So that's just kind of an introduction of some things that we might hear kids say that we are hearing kids say at school. And then we have this little video this video is kind of outdated, but I thought it just really helped me see it from a different perspective.
Most stressful parts of my life so far has been the first semester of 6th grade. You can feel sad, scared, angry. It's your brain that's sad, that's anxiety. Depression, it's not just sadness, it's a lot of things. It's stress and tiredness.
You could be stressed for like not really a good reason. You're just like overwhelming yourself.
When someone took my toy and didn't give it back even on Monday.
When my grandma's dog died, I felt sad.
His name was Snaggle. He died at like 15, I think. They had to put him down. We got to pet him a bit. I was pretty upset.
Like you have no energy when you're depressed and you're just like, don't want to do anything.
I make a mad face when I'm mad and angry.
My breath gets really, really fast. My heart beats really fast.
I feel like my stomach starts hurting.
All I want to do is just forget all of this.
Play a game that they wanted to play.
Even if I don't like to play that game.
If it seemed like really serious, I'd like tell them a grown-up.
Like just take a couple deep breaths.
I hugged a stuffed animal.
Squish the pillow like this, but you'd get kind of like a little more mad.
I have this special book at home that helps me overcome my anxiety. They call worries bullies. They always say to lock up the worry in an imaginary box.
I say cheer up.
Don't get too down on yourself because that's going to make everything worse.
Talk to people, like someone that you can trust, someone that will listen.
Tell somebody because it's not going to get any better if you don't.
She always cuddles with me and she tells me everything's gonna be okay.
Usually like snuggle me and like let us have a family movie night at nighttime. If she like notices I'm like kind of feeling down or something, she'll be like, you can talk to me or your dad or anybody or people like that about anything.
My parents, my grandparents, like you can talk to me whenever something's on your mind.
Mostly it's because kids don't tell their parents. They need to keep they need to tell them more about like what's going on in their life so they can know how to help you.
All right, I love that. And I love that we hear it from kids. And that's kind of what our jobs are. We hear from kids every day about the things that they worry about, the things that are stressing them out, the things that they're anxious about. And I just think it's always a good idea to kind of see things from their perspective. The other thing I just wanted to read was a summary of a sixth grader who is not affiliated with the Homewood school system, just someone in my network. And she wrote a little story about her own journey with anxiety. She says, my second story is about anxiety. I have felt anxiety for a long time. It started when I was in the first grade, and anxiety is like walking down a dark and scary alley without knowing what is waiting for you. At that time, I didn't know what it was, so I just thought it was me. When I got nervous, I would use my chair. I would take my heels of my shoe over and over again. In the end, it ruined my shoes. My parents only started to realize something was going on when that happened. Ever since then, I've had to deal with my anxiety every day. I do things that can help it, but nothing can get rid of it. It's hard. Sometimes my anxiety makes things different. Whether I'm presenting or taking a test, I always feel like I get judged wherever I go. My anxiety can make me feel alone, and I've just started to have depression, even this year. But what it has taught me, if anything, is to never give up, even when things are hard. We've made it this far. What's the point of giving up now? A positive mindset brings positive things. So keep a positive attitude. So that just goes to show you that once anxiety is out in the open, once kids are talking about it and learning to deal with it, it's something that they can have power and control over.
Okay.
And then, there we go.
Perfect. So we understand worry to be on a continuum, right? So watching that video of different children describing anxiety, not all of those children have an anxiety disorder, but they are experiencing anxiety at different levels. So we liked this image of it as a continuum, starting with fear on the left side, which is something specific. So a child might have a fear of snakes, or a fear of the dark, or fear of being away from a parent. And fears are something that come and go. They're very normal when it is, they can be very age appropriate. Moving on to the right, worry is something that hangs around a little longer. We can refer to it as stress. Again, it's usually about something specific, and it tends to stay with us longer than fears do. And then lastly, anxiety is furthest to the right. This is when adults or children have worries that are on a loop-the-loop in their brain, and it's really hard to stop it. So if you think of kind of an old-fashioned tape reel that just we can't stop in our heads, a lot of times it shows up at night when we finally slow down and are in bed and our minds can kind of take over. So that is one image of the worry continuum. So this is another way to think about it. So fears, again, are specific things we're afraid of. Worries stick with us a little longer. And then they can be more general or they can be more specific. And then anxiety is when we get a little more stuck. Do you want to go over the brain?
Yeah, and I kind of do this a little bit with kids. This is kind of like brain analogy anatomy 101. If you think about our brain, when you're talking about anxiety, we're thinking about the front part of our brain, which is the lymphatic system. And that's kind of like the feeling center of your brain. And a part of that is something that's very, very, very tiny, like the size of an almond, and it's called your amygdala. And that is what can help control that fight, flight, or freeze response. It's the thinking part, and it really wants to protect us. So Dan Siegel, he is a renowned psychologist, and he has done a lot of research in childhood disorders like anxiety and depression. And he has a great way of explaining how our brain works and how this part of our brain works. And I have one more video that really explains kind of what is going on in our brain. And this is a really good video just to show kids that they understand it. The more our children understand what's going on in their brain, the more confident they feel in facing that anxiety. So this is called Flip the Lid.
Yeah, so these are Dan Siegel's ideas, but it's a different person who's
He's
explaining
not
it.
in the video. So.
Hold your hand up like this, fold your thumb in, close your fingers down. This is a model of your brain. So the eyes, if there's a head here, they'd be looking out the front this way. This is the outside of that brain, that wrinkly part you see when you see a brain. And at the very front, right behind your forehead here, the smart part, the prefrontal cortex. It makes the decisions. Now inside, you can't see it, but we're going to open it up like this and we're going to see the thumb area and down here in the palm. These two areas work together. The limbic system, the emotions, the feelings part. When you feel scared, when you're really angry, when you're out of control and you're upset, you can't think straight. And here, the brain stem keeps your heart beating and your lungs breathing and makes you move your hand away from a hot stove really quickly. These two areas working together saves your life from a tiger. It sends out a warning signal, danger, danger, and our heart beats. We breathe fast and shallow, our muscles tense so that we can run or we can fight and save our lives, which is very handy if a tiger is chasing you. Not so handy if you're sitting in a classroom. Now what happens? The alarm will go off, and they're false alarms. You know, false alarms in the school when the fire alarm goes off and there was no fire and we all have to leave the building anyway? Well, that's what happens here. Somebody might criticize you or your teacher tells you to sit down and please do your work and you get all upset. That's not a real alarm. You're not really in danger. Yet, the alarm is set and you flip your lid. You lose the smart part. And this part is now in control. What can you do to get this smart part back? Start breathing slow, in through your nose, out through your nose, way down into your belly. Let your shoulders go. Relax, relax. Relax your body and breathe. This will trick this part. Look what's happening. The smart part. You get your smart part back. Because whatever got you upset, most of the time, is a false alarm.
So I feel like that's just a great example of what goes on in your brain. Now, sometimes that anxiety is good because if there is a tiger coming at us, we want to know what we need to do, and that is our body's natural response to know what to do to keep us safe. So that amygdala, its role is to keep us safe. Its role is to keep the kids safe. So anytime they feel threatened in any way, they're going to have that type of response. I'm going to reference some books throughout this presentation, and at the very end, we'll have a book list. But this is a great book. It's called Hey Warrior, and it explains this at a very elementary level so that elementary kids can understand. It really helped me understand it because I am not a doctor, nor did I get an A in biology. So it really helped me understand it a lot better too, just what our body's response is to this stress and to this anxiety. So it's called Hey Warrior by Karen Young. It has some great illustrations in it about worry and about the brain.
Okay, so the next slide is going to look at physical signs of anxiety and other signs of anxiety. So if we're thinking about how do we know when our children are experiencing worry or anxiety, they might be showing some of these things. One thing I wanted to say before I go into this about the video is that, certain of us, certain children, certain adults are more apt to go to that fight or flight mode quicker than others. So they might be genetically predispositioned to go to that fight or flight mode, to kind of go to that anxiety quicker. They might have had trauma as a young child or have witnessed something that makes them more predisposed to flip their lid quicker. It kind of just depends, and sometimes we don't really know why some children are more wired that way than others. But you can think about that with your own children. So just some signs that your child might be having anxiety, and most of you are well aware of what the signs are. So physical symptoms, so children might say they have a tummy ache, a headache, and those things might actually be happening. They might actually have a headache and a tummy ache, but they might be coinciding with a lot of anxiety. They might be fidgety. They might be physically clinging to you. Avoidance is a big one, and we're going to touch on this more later in the presentation, but children might avoid school. They might avoid doing homework. They might avoid bedtime. They might avoid trying new activities, playing with friends. We tend to avoid the things that we're anxious about. They might have trouble focusing. This one's tricky to tease out because attention problems can be related to other things, but we do see it as a byproduct of anxiety. Irritability, physical aggression, repetitive questions. So where are you going? When are you going to be back? One thing that is worth thinking about with the repetitive questions is considering how many of those you're going to answer in a row. If that's something your child does, something to think about that. One author says to not answer more than 5 questions in a row if they ask a lot, but that's something to kind of think about depending on how your child behaves. Insomnia, so trouble falling asleep or falling back asleep after a child wakes up in the middle of the night. Disruptive behavior, so acting out. And then this idea of perfectionism, so not letting things go until they're done perfectly, which is really just kind of a child needing comfort for some part of their life. So needing things to be just so is one sign of anxiety. This, you want to look at?
Yeah, this is just, and this will be in the sliding handouts, I think, that we are going to make available to you guys, but it's just kind of a cute way of describing kind of how we might see anxiety in kids, which is kind of what Anna Kate referenced. So is anything else on there? So we can go to the next slide. So what parents can do. So the rest of our time, we're going to talk about, we know you guys are here to know, hey, what can we do? Hey, either my kid has a lot of worry or a lot of anxiety, and I want to know what I can do at home to help my child, or what teachers can do at school to help their children. So that's what we're going to talk about for the remainder of our time together today. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about is validation and naming the worry. A lot of times, if we can give that worry a name, we can have the student learn to talk back to that worry. Helping your child use the coping strategies maybe that they already know or have. Resisting the urge to let your child avoid things. Modeling healthy coping skills at home, and then asking for help. I think the first one we're going to look at is the validation.
Yes.
So
this is something Dan Siegel talks about in his books, The Whole Brain Child in particular, and I think No Drama Discipline as well. He talks about this quite a bit. If we see something going on in our child that needs to change, whether it be anxiety or an outburst, he really talks about the importance of connecting with your child before redirecting them. So establishing a connection with them, physical and emotional, before we give them any sort of discipline or direction. So that can be a hug, that can be eye contact, it can be listening to really understand what they're going through, being curious. It of course depends on your child, the age of your child, the situation and the context that you're in. So we recognize there are a lot of different settings where you might be able to do more of this than others. But that's what we're trying to do first, because what we know is that our brains, and our children's brains in particular, don't really take in direction, advice, redirection unless they are calmer and connected to somebody who loves us. That's particularly true with children. They are more able to listen if they feel like you are really there with them and connected emotionally. We then want to really validate the emotions that they're feeling. So this involves reflective listening. Like, I see that you're starting to breathe fast. I see that you are really worried about this. You seem really frustrated. So we're naming, kind of helping or modeling the skill of being able to identify what we're feeling when we're feeling it. And we're also just reflective listening and validating what they feel. They might be able to name those emotions, but they might not. And if they can't in the moment, that's something that you can do for them. Naming the worry. This is something Tara referred to. So, we can be creative in naming the worry. Maybe you want to actually give the worry a name, like Frank or Bill, or you might want to name it something closer to what it actually is. But be creative. If we can externalize and help our child externalize the worry, then it's easier to kind of talk about it and talk back at it. And then we are just normalizing what children are feeling. It's normal to feel nervous before a test. Like, I hear you. So normalizing how they feel as not weird or not trying to fix it. We're just kind of saying, I see you. Go to the next slide. So this is a cute emotions feelings chart. And some of you might already use these, but we use them a lot. I use them in middle school, and Tara uses them a lot in the elementary schools. But it's a visual to help this process. So, we think it would be a great idea to print it out, have it on your refrigerator, have it handy, and it's good to use in these conversations. So it seems to me like you're feeling confused and maybe a little scared. Is there anything else on this chart that you can point to that you might be feeling? So having a visual, sometimes it's easier for children to point to things if they're not able to verbalize it in the moment.
All right, so helping your child cope. The first thing is, I really said this, but I want you guys to know worry is completely normal. We all worry every day. So it is a very normal thing. And I think we talked about normalizing things. You know, it's okay to tell your child, hey, I'm worried about this. This is what I'm going to do. So it's something we deal with every day. So as we are talking about it with our children, we want to help them recognize their own body cues and their own triggers for that worry. So if we can help them recognize what's going on in their body and recognize and name that worry, then they have more power and more control over that worry. So some of those body cues, and I'll ask when I'm talking with kids about their worries, I might have a printout of just an outline body shape and say, hey, where do you feel the worry in your body? And they might say, oh, I feel it in my belly. I have butterflies in my belly, or my legs feel tingly, or they feel like jelly, or my head hurts really bad sometimes when I'm worried, or sometimes I get real shaky. So helping them realize that this is their body telling them, hey, I'm worried. I need to take a step back and use some of my coping strategies that I know. When they can start recognizing it, then they know when to start using these strategies that we're going to talk about. I know some of you are probably with us for our Managing Meltdowns parent education a couple of months ago. We talked a lot about deep breathing. So again, deep breathing works with anxiety. If we can kind of control our breathing, we can calm our amygdala down. And kind of like in the video, if we can learn how to kind of rewire our brain and calm that down, then that is going to help our worries and our anxiety. So there's some great apps and things that you can use with that help with breathing. There's like, you can do square breathing. You can just have your child take their finger and just trace a square in the air or on a piece of paper and breathe around the square, or a circle, or a butterfly. There's all different kinds of things you can do with that. Also grounding games. I know we spoke about this too in our last parenting presentation. Anything you can use to try and help your child be connected in the moment. So it might be, that's kind of what grounding means. It's not like grounding, like you can't be on your Xbox for a month. It is like, okay, let's get in the moment. So I want you to just stop and look around the room and tell me 3 things that begin with the letter R. Sometimes that's just a distraction. It will get them refocused, and it helps them kind of be back in the moment. Look around the room, tell me something, all the things you see that are blue. And it's a great game. They love it. It might be you use your senses. Tell me 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things that you like to taste, and then something that you like to smell. Anytime you can incorporate senses or any kind of sensory things, it can help them kind of let go of some of that worry and anxiety.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
About that? So I've heard it said that anxiety is usually when we are really hyper-focused either on the future or on the past. And so that usually doesn't serve us well to a certain extent. So what grounding tries to do is saying, okay, let's be back in the present so that we can stop hanging out in the future and the past.
We hear a lot about mindfulness these days. So mindfulness can look a lot of different ways. Basically, again, it's about being in the moment, kind of like what Anna Kate was saying. It can be anything from thinking about a mantra. If you have a daily mantra that you love, we use a lot of positive self-statements like I'm brave, I'm strong, I can do hard things. A lot of the teachers have these posted in their classrooms. I know in the counseling offices, we have these posted. I will encourage kids that are really struggling with anxiety to put some things that they're really good at, or some really good we call them brave statements, on some sticky notes and put it on their bathroom mirror, so that when they wake up first thing in the morning, they're seeing that positive affirmation. They can start their day with that positive affirmation. I might get them to repeat it 2 or 3 times in the morning so that they are starting their day on a positive note. Some people might enjoy memorizing scripture verses. So that's something you can definitely use if you know your child and your family, and that's something that works for you. Memorizing those can help bring a sense of calm back to the child. Taking a nature walk. And I think in the handouts too, I have something about taking a mindful nature walk where you are walking through nature and you're identifying like a beautiful flower or a leaf or a cloud up in the sky. Having that time to just really reconnect can really refocus our attention and decrease some of that worry. I found this book. It's called Calm Mindfulness for Kids. I picked this up at Five Below. Five Below, this is a sales pitch for them. They really have some really good little books like this. They had an anger workbook. They're really fun. I mean, this is full of like colorful pages. This would be a great thing to have on hand this summer. Just lots of great ideas of ways that you can connect with your child. It doesn't even have to be when they're worried. We know that practicing things like this helps. So the more we kind of practice when they're not dealing with an anxiety issue, the more they're going to go back to those skills when they do. There also, I mentioned apps earlier. A couple of apps I just wanted to mention were Calm and Headspace. Those are actually apps that I do think they have a fee, but there is one that a teacher actually pointed out to me last week. It's called Breathe, Think, and Do, and it's by Sesame Street. And it actually talks the student through deep breathing exercises. It has a little monster on there. It's super cute. So I would encourage that one if you have really, really young kids that still enjoy Sesame Street. So it was called, again, Breathe, Think, Do by Sesame Street. Talking back, oh wait, hang on, I'll get there a second. Moving, I mean, that's just exercise, any kind of stretching, getting outside, and then just creating some space. And it might be that you're in your family, that when things start getting a little bit stressful, that y'all just kind of have a code word. And that just means, hey, you know what? I need some space. Mom needs some space. Grandma needs space. We need to take a break from each other right now. We need to reconnect. We need to go separate ourselves. And when we're feeling better, we can come back and continue this conversation. Or we can come back and work on the math homework later after we've had a little bit of a break and had some space from it. Do you want to add? Okay. The worry monster. And my daughter added the little worry monster over here for me, and she wanted credit, obviously, because I just noticed she put her name on there. We use this book a lot. I know our school counselors use this book a lot. It's called Worry Says What? And it talks about that worry monster, the worry monster that comes out at night. It can come out when a student is taking a test. It can come out on the playground when friends are playing and they're feeling excluded. It comes out a lot, and it can grow bigger and larger and bigger the more we let it talk to us. So learning to name the monster and talk back to it gives us power and control over our worry. So this is a really good book. Again, if you don't have access or can't purchase the book, there's always a YouTube video that will read the book to your child. So that has, in a pinch, that has worked really well for me, especially since I'm in between 3 schools. So sometimes I would have left a book somewhere and I'll just pull up YouTube and I'll read the book. It's a really good resource. Scheduling worry time. This is another one I talk to kids about. You know, we said worry is kind of a natural thing. Sometimes if kids know, hey, you know what, I have this scheduled worry time. I'm going to journal. I'm going to color. I'm going to talk to my grown-up about it. It's going to be 10 minutes. And if the worry pops up at school, they can kind of maybe jot it down on a sticky note and say, hey, I'm going to worry about this during my worry time. It might be a time in their day at school where they come into the counseling office, and we're just going to say, hey, this is your time where you can sit and think about that worry. But after that time is over, you know, we're going to lock it up and put it aside, park it in a parking place. We're not going to think about it. You've given it its time, and we're going to move on. So that's a great tool to use too. If you're going to do that and incorporate it at home, I would encourage you to have something afterward that's fun. Like after you have your worry time, we're going to play a game, go outside and play, walk the dog, eat a snack together, have something else, some kind of recovery after that worry time to get them kind of back grounded in the moment. This is another big one that has just come to my attention recently this year. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but on my phone, it came to my attention one night when I was cooking dinner, and all of a sudden my phone just went off in this loud, like, noise, noise, and everyone came running into the kitchen. And what is that? What is that? It was like an alert for something way down in South Alabama. Didn't even pertain to Birmingham, Alabama, and it caused all this just chaos in my home. And I thought, goodness, what is that doing to some of our students who are really, really, really struggling with some anxiety when these alerts go off? So did a little research on that. There is a way to turn off those Amber Alerts. I know they are super important. You might want it on your phone. You've just kind of, you know your family best and what you guys need. But I will say I've heard from several teachers, several students, that this is creating some anxiety in our kids. So I think on the next slide, I actually was like, sometimes it's like, oh my word, I got to go Google to figure out how to turn off the phone alert. But there are steps to turning off those government alerts. And I thought it would just be a great time to kind of let you guys know that is out there and that you can turn those off. So I think on the next slide, I have those instructions for how to do that. This was for myself too. So it's pretty easy to do. You go through the settings app on your phone. You can scroll down to notifications. And then there's actually a button on the screen where you say that you don't want to see the government alerts, and you can toggle that off. And you can decide which ones you want to see. I know sometimes it is important for us to see those weather alerts, but I do think it's something just to be mindful of in your home if that's something that tends to stress your kids out.
Yeah. Okay, so as Carissa said, I'm at the middle school primarily, and we are seeing a lot of anxiety. And the primary way it shows up in middle school is avoidance. So what we know is that when we feel anxiety, we want to avoid the things that cause it. So if we are worried about school, if we are worried about, a certain activity, we want to avoid it. And this especially happens in children who can't necessarily think about long-term consequences of that avoidance. So the more we let our children avoid things, the bigger those things become in their head, the bigger the anxiety becomes. It's true for adults too. The more we avoid a task, the bigger it gets in the back of our brains. So what we are really wanting to think about and encourage parents is to resist the urge to help your child avoid things. Instead, we want to really help our children face what they worry about, so that number one, they can learn that they can do things that are hard. And number two, we want to send the message that we have confidence that our children can face what they fear. So encouraging them to face what they fear is good on a number of levels. Now, your child, anxiety is on a spectrum. So some children are going to have to take this exposure to what they're scared of in chunks. So if they're really scared to go to school and they will not get in the car, we have encouraged parents to work with the school so that they can maybe gradually attend the whole day. Again, this is something that we are encouraging parents to work with us on, work with school administrators. We can be involved because what we don't want to happen is for kids to avoid attending school and for an attendance problem to happen. It tends to just snowball and get worse. So that's school. New activities, doctor's offices. We want to encourage our kids and support them to face what they fear. Preparation is key. And most of us as parents have experienced a time when we failed to prepare our children for something, and then we're like, we should have talked about that ahead of time because they were clearly not prepared to face this. But so talking about if you know that they're worried, like spring break. So we have a week off. If you know that, the night before school is going to be tough, the morning of the first day back at school, you might want to start talking to them on Thursday or Friday about gosh, you got 3 more days till school starts. What do you think that's going to be like? So start talking about it ahead of time. Again, this depends on the situation and the age, but think about how to prepare. I guess the biggest message I want to send from being at the middle school is that, when anxiety becomes a really big issue in middle school, it's when it's usually traced back to when we are not helping and supporting our children when things are hard, and we want to not, as much as we can. It's so easy for as parents for us to want to protect our children, but as much as we cannot enable that, we are actually helping them, even if it feels painful in the moment. So that's that slide.
All right, so model healthy coping. We kind of talked about this earlier, just about normalizing your language around emotions at home, using visual coping mechanisms like the feelings check-in sheet. That's really good. Making sure that you are in control of your own anxiety and your own worries, because kids feed off of that. So take care of yourself. Recognize when you might need extra help or when you need to talk to somebody. Making sure, utilize your school counselors, your student assistance counselors, your administrators. We're all in it to help you. So if you need help with something, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. Also, modeling healthy coping can look like a check-in system, and we use this at school. So it'd be great to have some parents utilizing this at home. In my home, it kind of looks like when I'm checking in, I have a fourth grader. I don't really use this with my high schoolers, but sometimes I will. When I'm checking in with my fourth grader, I'll say, hey, tell me about your day. What was good about your day? What did you enjoy? What was hard? What was challenging? Asking those open-ended questions, trying to get him to talk about it rather than, a lot of times you'll just get, it was good. So, okay, tell me what was good about it. Who did you sit by at lunch? Just really trying to get them to talk about their day. I've also used like rainbows and storm clouds to tell me about the rainbow moments of your day. Tell me about the stormy moments of your day. So it's always a good time, like carpool when you're picking your kids up, maybe right before you sit down for dinner. I would kind of hesitate to do that right before bedtime because you're trying to get them ready to go to bed. But having some kind of check-in system is a really good idea.
I will say that, the whole point of a check-in is to kind of connect with your child and to understand what they go through day to day. But in those casual conversations and when you're reading books and watching movies, normalizing those feeling words is so important. It helps children develop that vocabulary. So if you're reading a book, like, what do you think that character's feeling right now? Or he seems really mad. What do you think? And then if you're doing that highs and lows or rosebud thorn at dinner, like we do it at the dinner table. So we do highs and lows, and our 4-year-old has learned to do it too. And so he can identify the highs and lows. And so kind of incorporating that feeling language there too. Like, wow, what happened? Like, how did you feel when that happened? Like, wow. So even just little things like that, I think, go a really long way.
And then this is kind of what Anna Kate was touching on earlier, how to help them develop a growth mindset. So we know that this really does help with anxiety. The more they can learn to work through a problem, the healthier they're going to be. And we know that when kids have healthy problem-solving skills, that research has shown that really, truly decreases the likelihood of an anxiety disorder in the future. Healthy problem solving breeds confidence in your children. So when they have a problem, it's so easy to want to rescue them, but a lot of times helping them work through it, help them see the pros and cons to different situations, and then help them make that decision as to what they need to do. I had this situation come up with my fourth grader this morning. He's taking the ACAP this week, and he's like, well, I don't have a book to read. I'm thinking, okay. And so, I'm about to walk out the door. I'm like, I can't just magically make a book appear. I don't know what we're going to do here. I helped him. I said, well, these are your options. I helped him come through his, help him understand his options. He ended up going up to his room, looking at some books he'd already read, picked out a Dogman book to carry with him. So he was good. But, it's so easy just to say, hey, look, I've got this book. Let me grab it and give it to you, which could be one of the options. But helping him think through that, I think, is key in helping decrease some of their anxiety. Maybe it's like working on a new skill together that helps them learn things. It helps you learn things. It might be, hey, let's go out and figure out how to play a game of tennis or build something together. All these things are helping problem-solving skills. Help them remember past successes. So when they're really frustrated with maybe working on fractions, really validating that feeling. I know this looks really frustrating to you, and I know it's creating a lot of anxiety for you, but let's look back at the beginning of the year when you were really struggling with subtraction, and now subtraction seems so easy because you have worked through that, you've learned how to do it. So help them see where they've been successful and help them see where it's okay for them to fail and make a mistake. And those are opportunities for them to grow. Every problem is just an opportunity for them to learn and grow and become a better person. So in that, and I know especially in the elementary level, we want to make our kids comfortable. If they forget their lunch, we want to bring it up to them, which is completely fine. I'm not saying don't do that. But I think as they get older, at some point, we have to limit how much we're rescuing them. So it might be that you kind of have like a, especially maybe when they get to middle school or 4th and 5th grade, I think are great times to start doing this. Okay, look, after you have forgotten your lunch a couple of times, mom's not going to be able to come and bring you your lunch. You're going to have to eat in the lunchroom. You do have an option for lunch. It might not be your first choice, but you do have an option. So kind of thinking about those things. I know for my kids, it was leaving the band instrument. Well, I gave them like a one pass. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to you one time, but after that, you're going to have to face the consequence, because those mistakes are teaching them and helping them learn so that when they have those, and let's face it, we even have them as adults. And it helps us not be as anxious when we know that we can work through our problems.
Next slide. Okay, we always touch on sleep. We touched on this in our last parent ed too, just because we see so much the importance of this. So we know as adults that a lack of sleep makes all of our existing issues and problems so much worse. And it's the same for kids. So kids who have anxiety or who struggle with worries from time to time, not getting good rest tends to just exacerbate it. So just a reminder to have a consistent nighttime routine, at least during the week, where you do the same thing every night in the same order at the same time. And I know that as elementary students get older and have nighttime activities, that can throw a wrench in that. So I recognize that. But as much as possible, having that consistency is something that children really need. It also models for them what healthy sleep habits are. So children really need, this should say 9 to 11. They really need 9 to 11 hours of sleep per night. So count back, and your child. Some children need more and some children need a little bit less. But think about what time they have to wake up. Back it up 9 to 11 hours and really set that bedtime. We're in the last stretch here of school, so that might change a little in the summer, though I would argue keeping some sort of realistic and realistically early bedtime is probably beneficial in the summer too, at least during the week. But let's finishing out the school year strong with the set bedtime. That's good. Will be helpful to your child. And limiting screen time. So at least 60 minutes before bed. Children really shouldn't be watching anything, especially on a tablet or on their phone. And then please, you all know this, but especially for upper elementary kids, like those screens need to be removed from their bedroom at night. Research shows that having a phone or a tablet by the bed or in the room negatively impacts a child's mood. So it can actually make anxiety and depression worse to have it in the room. And it makes sense because if you think about a child who's getting text messages at 10, 11 at night, that might wake them up. Or if they happen to wake up in the middle of the night and they see activity on their phone and then they get focused on that, it makes sense. So really start, and those parents who are starting to introduce a phone to an upper elementary child might want to think about this ahead of time. But making a family rule that all phones and tablets go to a central location and are out of the room is a really good habit to start early. I think if it wasn't started and you're seeing the problem now, it's okay to change course. But we definitely see this as an issue. Screens in bedrooms at night is almost never a good idea.
Okay. And you can also utilize the, I know on iPhones, you can utilize the screen time setting where, it will shut down. Like, I think I have my son and he argues with me all the time about it. It's set to shut off like at 7 because he knows he goes to bed at 8. So it just shuts off. And now they will sneak. They will sneak and get other devices or go to the computer. I mean, they're smart kids. So they're going to figure out a way around it. So I'm telling you, I'm preaching to the choir here because it's so hard. But I think it is something that we have to give them those boundaries as parents. So. These are just another fun graphic of ways to deal with worry. Writing down feelings, talking to someone, distracting yourself with a book or a movie, going for a walk, exercising, calming affirmations, a gratitude list, create art. It's ugly art. So anyway, it's just a cute way or something you can show your kids of things they can do to help with their worry. And then when to get help. So there are times when kids do need extra help with their worry and anxiety. So if that worry and anxiety and avoidance is interfering with everyday activities on an ongoing basis, definitely that's and it's getting worse and not better, even though you're kind of incorporating some of the strategies that we've talked about today. That might be an indicator that you might need to think about some other avenues or some other help for your child, such as counseling or reaching out to the school counselor, talking to your pediatrician. Some other things might be a major shift in personality. Anytime they might show decreased interest in activities, friendships, or things they enjoy, and statements about self-harm or self-harming behaviors. And we threw those in there just because anxiety and depression do run together a lot of times. So a kid who's dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression can creep in. So we want to be aware of that as well.
The next slide really focuses on community resources. So always go to your pediatrician first. They tend to be able to tell you what is typical and what is atypical for the age of the child. And then they can also refer you to outside providers like a counselor, a clinical social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, and they can kind of point you in the right direction. So we always point our parents to the pediatrician first. We have lists, as school assistance counselors have lists of community resources, and we give those out frequently. So if you can also call us or call the school counselor, they also have those lists. And then Psychology Today is a great website. Some of you may have used it, but it's a way to filter for helping professions, so counselor, psychology, psychiatrist, clinical social worker, marriage and family therapist. You can filter for location, billing, and insurance. It just gives you a list of helping professionals who might be taking new clients. So what we're seeing is a lot of private practitioners are having wait lists right now, so they're just overwhelmed. So if you think that your child might need to talk to someone, I would go ahead and do that research, ask for those resources, and get on some wait lists. You can always cancel if you change your mind. EAP, so a lot of employers have EAP services. So Employee Assistance Program is what that stands for. So they offer free counseling to employees and their families. So that might be an avenue to check first. The Crisis Center in Birmingham is wonderful. So they have children and teen resources, so helplines that you can call, and they also have adult services. And then lastly is the PERC. So this is the Psychiatric Intake Response Center located at Children's Hospital. This is a phone line that's open, I believe, 8 to 11 every day. And it's really a resource line. So anyone in the community can call and talk about what's going on with the child, using a name or not using a name. And they have an database of providers and resources that are updated frequently, and they can give you a list of resources. They can also consult if there's a crisis. So if a child might be headed toward a crisis or is in crisis, you can call and talk with them, and they're all licensed mental health professionals. So it's a really great resource in our community.
Yeah, and I noticed the number wasn't on there, so I was going to give it to y'all real quick. The number, if anyone is interested in jotting it down for PERC, is 205-638-7472. 205-638-7472. And then lastly, we just kind of mentioned the book list, and then you guys should have some of those handouts too that Carissa was going to send out. So the book list on the next slide.
Kara, before we go to the next slide, could you give me the number for PERC again? I'm putting it in the chat.
Yeah, it's 205-638-7472.
Okay, I just dropped that in the chat. There we go.
Thank you. And here's just the book list that I mentioned, reference some of them. The Hey Warrior book, Worry Says What, Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents. I haven't not read that book, but as I was kind of putting some things together for the presentation, I came across it, and it looks like it could be a really good resource. Braver, Smarter, Stronger by Sissy Goff. That's a faith-based book. And then Anna Kate referenced Dan Siegel, The Whole Brain Child and No Drama Discipline. So I know there's tons of resources out there. You can Google anything and get all kinds of information overload. So it's kind of good just to have a good condensed list.
Yes. Yeah, I've read almost all of Dan Siegel's books, and they're just really foundational and helpful, whether it's anxiety or any other parenting concerns. Really good. Okay. And then the last slide just has our contact information, as well as the student assistance counselor at the high school, Katie Smith. She's also our lead student assistance counselor. So feel free to reach out by email if you have any specific questions for us, need resources or anything like that.
And also the school counselors, they're not on there, but they are on the school website. So
we work closely with them. Right, I think that's it. If Carissa's going to facilitate if there are any questions.
We've got one comment that just says, thank you. This has been very helpful. I did drop a link to a Google document in the chat area, so please feel free to download that. That includes a copy of the presentation as well as some of the handouts that they referenced. So you're getting a lot of thank yous. No questions.
You're welcome.
So far. Okay, so someone said they had to request access to the document above. It should be open, but I will. Anybody who's requesting access, I'll make sure I confirm that.
That's fine. And I think that I also added in those handouts too, just some positive affirmation statements. So I think this would be a really good thing for parents to have, because sometimes I get stuck. Oh, what can I say? How can I affirm my kids? So it's good to have those to look over.
Okay, and I did just edit the document that includes the presentation to make sure that everyone should have access to it. So it should be open now.
And it'll be posted on the website too, right? The whole presentation, I think.
It'll take us about a week, and we'll have this presentation loaded to the Homewood City Schools district website. Okay. So a lot of thank yous, and I want to thank you ladies too for doing this. It was a great presentation. I think very important for parents. So greatly appreciate y'all, and I think we're ready to wrap it up.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone.